Welcome to Between the Brackets. I'm Yaron Koren. And my guest for this episode is Ilana Fried, the product manager for the campaigns team at the Wikimedia Foundation. Before that, she was product manager for the community tech team, also at the Wikimedia Foundation. Ilana is also the founder of the wiki Gynopedia. So Ilana, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So first of all, where are you located?
I am in Brooklyn, New York.
Very good. How long have you been in Brooklyn? I saw some news articles that mention you living in San Francisco.
Oh yeah, I've moved around the place. I'm originally from San Francisco. That's my hometown. And I like to travel a lot. And sometimes when folks travel and they get back to their home country, they kind of need to reestablish their roots. So I've often come back to San Francisco for a while to get things back in working order. I've lived in New York twice, actually. I lived in New York years ago, and then I left for a while to spend some time living in Asia and backpacking around. And then I moved back to New York in 2018.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I used to live in Brooklyn, actually, in Park Slope. Cool. So the travel thing is a good segue, I suppose, because I believe you got your start with in the wiki world with the site Gynopedia, which is in large part about travel, from what I understand. Can you explain what Gynopedia is?
Sure. Gynopedia is a wiki on sexual and reproductive healthcare around the world. So it covers topics like contraceptive access, emergency contraceptive access, abortion laws, menstrual products. And it was largely inspired by some issues that I encountered, as well as my friends and loved ones, both traveling and living abroad, as well as just being in your home country and not knowing what resources are available to you. And I was really inspired by how wikis were collaborative and open source. It just seemed like a good instrument or a tool for getting people to share this information, because it's also often really sensitive topics. It's not something where like right away everyone's gonna come and share information. It seems like a good format that allowed people kind of at their own pace and a more confidential way to share info. So I launched it out of a budget hotel room in Hanoi.
Oh, wow. Okay. When was that?
So I did that in 2016. So I've been backpacking for, I don't know, maybe about 6-7 months beforehand. So I had the idea when I was backpacking, but I kind of needed a bit more of like an established base to be for a little while. So I knew I was going to be living in Hanoi for a little while. So it seemed like a good time to start it up. So in the period when I was living there, that's when I started it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well, not to dismiss the backpacking lifestyle, but that seems more ambitious than what most people do while they're, traveling. But, was that, I mean, not to get too personal, but was that based on some specific experience or something that you had where it's difficult to get information?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I would say it was more of just like years of experience. It wasn't any one episode, but I had encountered a lot of difficulty finding information, both in the States, my home country, as well as in other places I had lived in. I lived in Turkey in the past. And I knew it was a problem for a lot of other folks. And I knew about wiki travel. And I really liked how wiki travel, I think I was in large part inspired by wiki travel. I didn't know about wiki voyage at first. I knew about wiki travel first.
Right.
And with wiki travel, I think I liked how casual and informal it seems in a way. Like I was pretty intimidated by the prospect of editing Wikipedia. That took a lot more time and confidence for me to get to that point. But wiki travel would be things like a restaurant in a neighborhood that people liked, or a budget hotel that was recommended. And that, to me, I thought, oh, I know that information already for some of the places I've been to. So that structure, when it was said if the pages were based on cities, and it seemed like it was calling people who had just lived in those places or traveled those places to share information they had, there was something that I think I saw there that helped inspire me to create Gynopedia.
Yeah, okay. And for people who don't know, wiki travel is is a travel guide. There was a whole big mess with the Wikimedia Foundation I think a few years before you started your site, where the company that owned Wiki Travel sued Wikimedia Foundation for wanting to create their own travel site, which they had to name Wiki Voyage because Wiki Travel was taken. Anyway,
that was also something I learned about later.
Oh, I see.
I came in very wide-eyed. I didn't know about all the politics and drama behind the scenes. But
Yeah,
what I
right.
did, it actually kind of interested me more too, because I saw how much people care about these projects. And that in a way was actually intriguing because I had seen the sort of disenchantment with a lot of traditional social media. Facebook, I joined when I was in college, and a lot of people were really excited that I was friends with when I was in college, but this new world of sharing everything online. And as things soured and people felt less and less trust in these platforms, I saw people really fiercely advocating for wikis and what they meant to them. And I don't know, that really interested me.
That's interesting. That's a whole separate discussion. People talk about how Wikipedia is better than Facebook or that sort of thing. I mean, they're totally different, of course, but still people sort of group Wikipedia into the whole social media world. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? This is a total tangent, but do you feel like people are, I don't know, for me, well, just getting to my opinions, it's just strange to all of a sudden be confronted with the opinions of people that I know or knew 10 years ago or whatever. And, I just don't really care. I mean,
oh, you're talking about stuff they'll post on Facebook, like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes me think less of people. Like if I hear an opinion I agree with, that's just a neutral response. I think, okay, but then if I hear an opinion I disagree, it's only negative. It only has negative repercussions for me. I don't know if that's part of it for you, or that's just my own.
Oh yeah, it's definitely, I've actually taken what some people consider pretty drastic measures to reduce or remove social media from my life. Like, it's blocked on my phone, and I have extensions on my browser, my computer, to limit the time I can access most social media sites, because I just realized how addictive and negative they can be for me. But yeah. I don't feel that way about wikis.
Very good. That's interesting. Yeah, I used to be more on those sites too. So that, yeah, I definitely relate to that. I mean, is part of that just that you don't know the people that you're editing with on wikis, or is it more than that? Like, I guess maybe you do actually know, IRL in real life, some of the people who edit sites, especially presumably on your wiki, on Gynopedia.
Well, I think the fact that people are coming around a shared goal of adding information rather than maybe just personally publicizing their particular political views, or if it's something like Instagram, their sort of brand and lifestyle, to me that just seems like a more interesting and motivating factor to come online, and goes back to more of like the early ideals that really excited me as a young person when I started becoming more active online. So I like that's shared around certain projects. Or I'm just a huge nerd, and I love writing and researching, and I think that's more my speed. But yeah, there's so many different reasons why. But the fact that people can be anonymous too, but they are also beholden to their edit history. They're both like anonymous, but have a history. I think that's an interesting kind of alternative form of identity that we see in a lot of other platforms as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, okay. Cool. So yeah, back to starting Gynopedia. So yeah, I mean, did you think at any point to just, I mean, that's a pretty drastic step to create a new site. Did you think to just try to add this information to Wiki Travel, that kind of thing? Was that even?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that. Like, I did not know what I was doing. And I think that's a lot of time what can inspire people to start up projects is almost this like naive optimism, which I totally had in spades. But I think a lot of it for me was, I just felt like there was no place that was appropriate for it. If I were to go to, say, like the Istanbul page. I knew so much information about this kind of stuff in Istanbul because I had lived there and I had personally experienced some of the stuff that people would want to add. It would just take over the page. It would be this like huge section in like extensive detail about sexual and reproductive health care. And I just didn't feel like, people who would care about the Istanbul page on Wiki Travel would think it was like a proportionate amount of information that would be useful. But I also felt like it was good to really go into detail because it wasn't just about saying, oh, this is what's available or these are the laws. A lot of the time, in particular for women, we really want to understand the social and cultural context behind stuff because there's a lot of navigation of how you interact with pharmacists, how you interact with healthcare professionals, how you ask for things, how you feel safe.
Right.
It's a whole world that I felt like deserved its own wiki.
Yeah. I guess in some countries that's a minefield. I guess you can say not just for tourists, but also for native women, that whole thing. But presumably they can access. They already can ask people and so forth. But,
well, not necessarily. One thing that I've really learned through my research is the level of empowerment that people feel to find resources can really vary. There's a lot of women around the world will either not have resources to ask people, not feel comfortable asking people, fear judgment. They may even, if they want to get something like emergency contraception, try to go many, many neighborhoods away, very far away,
really?
For fear of even running to someone they know.
Right.
I will have people, there's a Facebook page, message me asking about what resources are available in their own countries. And I'll say, check out the, Gynopedia page for where you live. So that's a common factor is due to stigma and shame and lack of comprehensive education around these topics. A lot of people, even though they're full-fledged adults and live in a place where they've always lived, might have some big gaps in their knowledge or awareness.
Yeah. Have you, I guess the answer is obvious, but have you heard from people for whom Gynopedia has been a helpful resource?
Yeah. So, I mean, because a lot of the time I just don't know a lot of people who are using it. There's, of course, a lot I don't know, but there have also been some people who have emailed me or direct messaged me. And it's been really cool to hear from them because I started this with no money, no like team. It was really just me. One thing that I think was a big change with Gynopedia was when some journalists started reaching out to me. So I never reached out to journalists myself and said, hey, you should write about this. I just started having journalists contact me. And some of them contacted for both, I think, out of professional curiosity and also a personal interest too. Some of them would say, this is so great. I see the benefit of this. And so it got covered in, Anglophone press and French press. And that was really exciting to see. But yeah, I'm always appreciative of any positive words, including also from the nonprofit space. There's been some NGOs and nonprofits who've been very supportive of the work that I did as well.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I wanted to ask about that because there's also a Wikipedia article about Gynopedia, so you can see all the sources there, and there are indeed a bunch of international newspapers. There's the big Hong Kong newspaper that also covered it. I was wondering about that because for a lot of people who start their own wikis or sites in general, they just getting publicity is a big hurdle, and for you it just sort of happened. It just sort of fell into your lap, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think part of the way it did happen is part of like how I had to do a lot of things through Gynopedia, which was through social media. So I recognized sort of early on with Gynopedia that I would have to do the vast bulk of editing myself because first of all, it's just hard to get people to edit wikis. Second of all, there's, the infamous gender gap. So it's also hard to get large groups of women to edit wikis. And it's a smaller wiki, it's on sensitive topics. There were a lot of things going against me. So my whole strategy early on was I will do a lot of this research myself, which I just did not mind doing at all because I find the topic interesting. I'm passionate about it. I had a background in doing some like journalism and research work. So I felt relatively comfortable navigating some of that space. And then I'd go on different social media groups, like a Facebook group for, say, women in Singapore or expats of Hong Kong or whatever it may be, and let them know, hey, I wrote this page. Please let me know if it can be improved. This is how you can improve it yourself. You can just click edit. Anyone can edit. And I think through also publicizing it through social media, that may be how some journalists found me, because they were maybe interacting in those groups as well. It's totally not a conventional way to get people to learn about a wiki, but for me, I found it a helpful way to just let folks know that might not otherwise ever encounter it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, obviously you had writing going in your favor, that that's a big topic. I mean, it's, you know, it's not like hot air ballooning or something. It's not some niche thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like, because there are so many organizations and international efforts around these topics, there was sort of this sort of mental connection where like, actually a lot of people understood the topic area a lot more than they understood wikis. Like I remember one journalist asking me why Gynopedia looked like Wikipedia. So I had to explain how MediaWiki is open source software and what that means. So that was actually more what I had to explain all the time than why they're these topics and why we're delving into, you know, contraceptive access or something like that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, right, right. And it's not even that long ago. You know, I mean, right. Yeah. It's not like, you know, 2003 when people were asking, nobody knew what a wiki was. Although still in the larger world, it's essentially that same state of things.
Yeah, I would imagine that some of the questions I was asking in 2016 were also questions brought up in 2003.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, how did you end up using MediaWiki? I guess it was obvious because, you know, all the other wikis you were thinking of were also using MediaWiki. Okay, yeah.
well, it was actually not though. So what I did was I was looking around to see if there was like an easier way to get MediaWiki running and then maybe do some customization. So I found that, I think it was SiteGround had kind of a quick install for MediaWiki. So I first did the quick install myself, and then I thought, okay, actually there's some customization I want. I don't want it just purely out of the box. So I forget what list I looked at. I was like on MetaWiki or MediaWiki, but there was a list of people who were freelance MediaWiki developers. So I actually emailed a few of them and explained what the project was. And then I heard back from one person who referred me to another person. And then I worked with a freelance MediaWiki developer to do some of the like customization to make it a little more what I had in mind. And luckily, since I'd worked as a product manager in the past, I feel like I was able to, I knew how to communicate with an engineer about like what my vision was and what I wanted. But yeah, it was definitely different doing it in a formal work environment versus like me just emailing someone in a cafe in Hanoi or something. Okay. But it was way more exciting for that reason too, because it was like my thing.
Well, what does that mean? Were you no longer at a hostel in Hanoi or something?
The first, when I moved to Hanoi, the whole idea was we were backpacking for a while, and then we needed, me and my partner, to save our money to continue our travels. So we stopped in Hanoi to work and teach and kind of, regain our energy. Okay. So we first lived out of like a hotel room for 6 weeks until we got our own apartment. And then we had jobs there and everything. So that was kind of a more peaceful time where we weren't on the road, and I could really like do a lot of the heavy duty research and social media stuff and all the stuff I would plan to do with Gynopedia. Yeah.
Okay. So you weren't really, not to cast aspersions, but you weren't really a backpacker at that point.
No, so I stopped for that, and then I started again, and then I continued doing Gynopedia as I backpacked.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
What were you teaching, by the way? English?
Yeah, so, well, kind of. I was teaching like test prep and essay work. We weren't in Hanoi very long, maybe like I don't know, like 8-9 months, and then we continued our
Yeah.
travels. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. Uh, yeah, okay. Okay. So yeah, so you set up MediaWiki, and was there any actual custom development? Are there any extensions or something that are unique to
I
that?
learned over time what to use. So initially, I didn't realize I should really use the moderation extension. Like, I wish I did that from day one. I guess I didn't
Oh,
use it
okay.
because I wanted everyone to be able to add stuff as easily as possible, but it contributed to a lot of spam. So eventually I just had that installed. Translate was something I wanted very early on though. So I used the translate extension because I knew it would never be like as big of a project to say Wikipedia. We're gonna have full-fledged other language wikis. So instead it would be translate. So of course there's some difficulties with using the translate extension. Anytime there's a change to the original article, then it has to be updated in the translated version,
Sure,
and
yeah.
translation on a voluntary basis can be hard. I had sort of a brief period of getting a decent amount of French translation because Gynopedia, after it got covered in French, the French press, some like translation association or nonprofits in France like shared information about it. And so some French translators came on, which was great. And I think a lot of them were kind of earlier in their career and they were doing that to also build out their portfolios. And sometimes people would occasionally email and say they want to translate, but I'm glad I did the translate extension instead of like a full-fledged separate other language thing, because it is like just English alone is quite a bit to manage. So there's a few pages that are in French or Spanish, but still primarily English.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, there's various other things that were used.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. But you didn't. Yeah. There are no custom extensions. No. Nothing.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. Just a lot of a lot of.
Yeah.
And by the way, I should mention you. The site also does make use of my page forms extension, but just for one small thing, just for to do a structured query form thing. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, that was nice to see. I think you could make more use, and you have semantic MediaWiki installed too, but I don't know if you're actually using it, but yeah. Cool. I mean, as long as it's helpful, that's the only really important thing. Do you still contribute to it? Presumably you have less, firsthand information than you did before, now that you're back in the US.
So I have been less active, but it's not necessarily because I'm back in the US, because I learned a lot about how to research these topics. So now I'm a sort of self-taught, I wouldn't say
researcher
experts, because but I know quite a bit about how to research these topics for a lot of countries around the world. Like I know the websites to go to and the reports to look at, because I've done it quite a bit at this point. But I think I just got more busy when I joined the foundation, and it became very difficult for me to manage. Okay, I work for the foundation, and then I also have this wiki that I also contribute content to, and it's been a balancing act that's frankly been tough. And I wanted to get better at it. That was like my New Year's resolution. Then the pandemic hit and a lot of stuff was going on, but I do want to find a way to balance both, because I still love editing it, but it's been a bit of a challenge lately for me to do both.
Really? Okay. What? So you're so busy with the Wikimedia Foundation work that you don't have time for side projects?
It's not even that. I think just there was a lot of stuff going on with the pandemic and like changes in my life and other people's lives I care about. So that took up a lot of my energy for a while. But now things are
right.
Yeah. But now things are calming down a bit. So I think I can have some more kind of renewed space and energy and clarity.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. What a relief it's been to, just walk around, go to stores with no mask, all that stuff.
I'm still wearing masks quite a bit.
Okay, well, it depends now apparently that's a political topic too. So
well, I just don't have it's not even political. It's the law requirement. Most grocery stores in New York and in the subway, and you still have to wear a mask. So you don't have to wear a mask if you're just walking around. But there's a lot of places in New York where you still need to wear a mask.
All right. Well, yeah, cool. I hope Hope you can, get back to Gynopedia and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I was thinking if I had any actual knowledge of women's health and traveling and all that. I realized a few years ago, someone told me, this may or may not be totally related, but someone told me she knew at some point traveling through, I want to say South America, she knew a fellow female tourist who got impregnated by another tourist or backpacker, and it turned out to be what's known as an ectopic pregnancy. So she didn't even know she was pregnant until she started having severe stomach pains, and then she went to the doctor, and thankfully they found it pretty much just in time, or it could have been very bad,
Yep.
possibly fatal. I don't know if that's totally related to the kinds of stuff that's on the site. I just, I think just being in another country made it worse, like just literally not having a doctor that in that country and not knowing exactly what to do and so forth.
Totally. And another thing on Gynopedia is there's a section called Advocacy and Counseling, which is about, that's where you can also find services to help you navigate things if you're in a crisis. So some people may want to directly just find information on recommended pharmacies or hospitals or gynecologists, but if people want kind of some extra support, I recognize that was a factor too. So in that kind of case with your friend, Gynopedia, of course, could be a place hopefully where there's resources available. I was thinking about those kinds of things in mind as well.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, very, very, I don't know if cool is the word. Very, very good. Yeah, so then at some point you started working for the Wikimedia Foundation, as you noted. How did that happen? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I was doing freelance work for a while because we were traveling around and we didn't have, a super kind of stable place that we were living. But then after I had been living in New York for maybe about a year, I realized that my freelance work was really hard in terms of like paying rent and really basic stuff. And I was ready for a change. But I really liked working remotely. I really liked the nature of some of my freelance work. So I knew that whatever I went into next, I wanted to be something that I really cared about. So I was kind of slow moving and trying to see what worked. I initially didn't even know that Wikimedia Foundation had jobs and hired. To me, that just seemed like so cool, but so outside of something that would be available to me.
Right.
And then one day I was looking in some job forum listing thing, I don't remember, and the foundation came up and I thought, oh, whoa, I would love to work there. And so, yeah, when a position opened up that seemed like it was good for me, a product manager position, the contributors side, then I applied and I joined in June 2019. Actually, I think it was June 24th. So tomorrow will be like my 2-year anniversary.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. And you were in Brooklyn at that point.
I was in Lower Manhattan.
Oh, okay. Fine. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, New York. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you met any of your coworkers? Well, you're no longer in that team, but have you met any of the people in that team or in general?
Yeah, so I was lucky to work for the foundation like a little over 6 months before things started closing down. So I met my team. We had a team kind of meeting in person, and I was also able to participate in one all hands event where I met pretty much everyone in San Francisco. And then shortly after the all hands events, certain cities started announcing restrictions. But I'm really glad I was able to meet folks. It's really enriched my work that I've had that opportunity. I don't know when I'll be able to see a lot of my coworkers again, but at least here in New York, I've been able to see some people, especially more recently now that things are reopening up.
Okay. Where are most people located?
We have people in, I would say Brooklyn has more people than the other boroughs, but we have people, around the place. in New York.
Oh, okay. So what,
Yeah.
most people on the team happen to be living in New
Oh,
York?
no, I mean like most New Yorkers who work with the foundation.
Oh,
So
I see.
no,
Okay, I got
definitely
it.
not community tech. So
Yeah,
community
okay,
tech,
okay.
we had 2 New Yorkers. And we had folks in other places, Australia, uh, India, the UK. So
Yeah.
we needed to be kind of conscientious of people's time zones. So when I worked on the team, I actually tended to work between my time, 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. because we had some meetings that were later because we had to accommodate everything from California to Australia.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So everyone sort of settles on San Francisco time, I guess.
Yeah, it was kind of like a 9 to 5 San Francisco time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But there were some
Um,
early meetings I did to accommodate some other folks because some folks who lived in drastically different time zones than me, some of them prefer to work in the mornings and some in the evenings. So the ones who prefer to work more in the mornings, I'd be doing later meetings. And then those who prefer to work in their evenings, I would do early meetings for me. So there were some also like individual meetings that varied. My schedule is very not like a 9 to 5 block just because of the nature of working in like a global distributed organization.
sure. Yeah. Um, so, so, um, uh, so yeah. So what is the community tech team? What do they do?
So the community tech team, what we do is, every year there's a wish list where contributors, so these are editors of all Wikimedia projects, not just Wikipedia, it can be Commons, it can be Wikisource. They submit wishes for what they want the team to work on. Then they vote on the wishes and then the team works on the top wishes. Some years it's just top wishes in general. And then some years it's a more curated list. So for example, one year that I was in the team, we decided to work on smaller projects that had more difficulty getting to the top of the list because there'd always be more votes usually for Wikipedia or Commons just because they're larger projects. So that ended up being a list where we could do some Wikisource work, for example, which normally would be more difficult. So that's how some of the Wikisource projects came to be. But the traditional structure is just for all the projects.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Wikisource. Right.
Yeah.
What's an example of a Wikisource project? Now I'm curious.
Yeah, so Wikisource is a way to, it's really cool. If
Oh, I
anyone
know
else
what. Yeah,
is,
sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead. For people who
you
don't know
know,
what Wikisource
yeah,
is.
a big, book person like me, you can find all these free licensed books on Wikisource available in a bunch of languages. And Wikisource editors, I think, are amazing because they do a lot of tough work. They are proofreading the text and making sure that it's all correct. So there's the Wikisource kind of reader experience, and there's also the editor experience. One of the projects I worked on was improving WS export, the main way that books are downloaded, or Wikisource export, which is useful
Okay.
for both readers and contributors. And another project the team's working on now, I started it, but it's now with the new product manager and I'm no longer in the team, so they're continuing it on, is improving tools for OCR work. So that's optical character recognition. So when books are scanned and then there's work that goes on to analyze the characters and convert it to text that can be then proofread by the editors. It's about improving those tools.
Yeah. So you get this list. When did the survey happen, by the way?
It usually happens generally around, it can vary year to year. I would say anywhere between like November and January, kind of, Christmas, winter sort of time.
Yeah. Okay. So it's the beginning of the new year. You've gotten this big list of survey results.
Yeah.
How do you go about deciding on priorities? And that's if a Wikipedia project gets 10 times as many votes as a Wikisource project, for instance, for example. I don't know how Wikidata fits in there, if it's 10 times as much as Wikipedia these days or what, but
Yeah, that's varied from year to year, how the team
Uh,
treats it. So the old, like the traditional model is we'll do say like the top 5 or top 10. Well, one thing what happened with the team over time is the more work we did, the more new tools and features we were actually maintaining that we worked on. And also some of the wishes got bigger over time. And our team also started taking on approach of wanting to kind of more thoroughly dive into the problem area and have more of a long-term solution. So there were a lot of things that made us think we still want to do all this work, but maybe it's over promising to say a certain number of wishes in advance, especially because with a lot of software development work, you only really know the scope and how long it'll take after you've kind of done a full analysis and you've really looked into all the quirks. So the team, what they're doing now is, I'm not on anymore, but from my understanding is it's about doing top wishes, so whichever ones get the most votes, but not necessarily saying, okay, we can do X number in a given year, like trying to see how much can be done at a reasonable pace, but not kind of like over promising too early on in terms of the number.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you have to factor in both how popular the request is, presumably, and how easy or difficult it is, and
totally, yeah. That's definitely another factor is, any technical difficulty or risk, dependencies, impact. There's a lot of things that can go into probably what makes the final decision for what to work on next.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how involved were you in making those decisions, or were you more just, managing the process and handling all the I don't even know what the word is, infrastructure around the decision making?
So the product manager does make the decision, but in collaboration with the whole team. So Community Tech is a wonderfully collaborative team. I loved working for the team for many reasons, but one of the primary ones was I really felt like we were a real team. Like we made decisions together. If there was something that was difficult, we worked on it together. So this was something that we would weigh the pros and cons. But ultimately the decision rests with the product manager. So the product manager will be talking to different people to kind of weigh the options and make that final decision.
Yeah, okay. Are there any features that the people can see that came about as a result of this whole survey thing? Well, you mentioned the the Wikisource stuff, but
watchlist expiry, that was probably the biggest project when I was on the team. We also did Who Wrote That when I was on the team. Watchlist expiry is a way to watch pages temporarily, and you can choose to watch them temporarily through a few different workflows. It can be the star at the top of the page. It can be when you're editing. And it was actually a very long request. I found a ticket from 2006 asking for a way to temporarily watch pages in Fabricator. But for many years, it wasn't worked on. It was big and difficult. And I think there were just various factors at play. But we were really excited to do it because we knew how long it had been requested. So that was a feature I really loved working on. And I loved also, one of the things that's so cool about Community Tech is everyone who voted on the wish really cares about it. And they're people are active in the top page and they're sharing their feedback. They'll let you know if they like something or if they don't and why. Wikimedians are great at sharing their thought process. So I really love the collaborative nature of that. With Who Wrote That, it's a browser extension where you can click on content in a Wikipedia article and you can see some background on the edit. Who wrote it? You can get a link to the diff. You can see the timestamp of when it was added. So that's another feature we worked on when I was on the team.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had some in-depth discussions with people at WikiWorks, my consulting company, about Who Wrote That specifically, and the possibility of making it not a browser extension and just having it all be directly on the wiki. Ooh. Right now, it's that's really useful for a lot of wikis and a lot of people to be able to do you can call it a blame thing, and that's
yeah, I think that's actually an earlier name for it, and then blame tool. But then there was a conversation like, that doesn't sound very nice, blame.
I know, yeah. I feel like it started as a joke that just sort of got out of hand, like referring to that as blame, like being able to see who for some specific piece of code who is responsible. Yeah, but yeah, that would be a big selling. Not that you care specifically about this, but it would be a big selling point for MediaWiki to be able to have that kind of thing. And it makes sense that you would have it because the information's all there somewhere to be able to do that.
Oh yeah, I actually used who wrote that to show my mom kind of how wikis work a little bit.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because if I would just show my mom a Wikipedia page and then say, here's the edit history, and I just feel like that's not something that, necessarily would click in her mind of like, there's so many different people who contribute to this page at different times, and they're doing different kinds of edits. So when I visited my parents in San Francisco a while back, I just opened up a Wikipedia page and I just started clicking on things when I had who wrote that enabled, and just showed her kind of like the diversity of edits and the different people editing a page. And I feel like it helped explain things a little bit.
Yeah, okay. They have a better response now when somebody asks what their daughter does. Yeah, I mean, right, yeah. It only works for Wikipedia right now. No, there's some outside service that just collects all this information.
Yep.
Some outside site, is that all run by the Wikimedia Foundation, or is there some third-party group doing part of that?
Yeah, so there's the WhoColor API that we were using, and that was limitation. And I think it actually initially came out of someone's dissertation. Since it's been a while, I forget the name of the organization that maintains WhoColor. Probably a quick Google search could find that. But yeah, okay. Maybe they're even called WhoColor. I don't remember, but that's the third-party dependency. That's why we were even able to do the project, because that API existed. So it was within scope for our team. It would have been way too huge of a project otherwise. Yeah. But it's also unfortunately why at this point we don't have it, say, in all wikis. Right. It's only available in certain languages because of that limitation.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully. Well, I guess it's too late to ask you about it because you're not anymore. Not that I did you? Yeah, it would be cool. Sorry, just to finish the thought. Yeah, it would be great to be able to have that as standard functionality. Yeah, did you ever get people lobbying you personally for changes for to have their suggested change be higher up in the priority list or something?
Oh, like, why are you doing this wish? I think you should do another wish.
Right.
I feel like it's more common for folks to say the approach you're taking with this wish, or when you're deciding this wish is done.
Yeah.
I have a different idea around it. Generally, people have seemed happy whenever we take on a wish. I think they would love if we do more wishes, and if we were a bigger team and we were able to accomplish more. And I think a lot of folks in the team would also, be happy to be able to do as many wishes as we possibly can. But more of the work that I would have day to day in talking with folks is around, say, like, why did you guys make that design choice? Or when is it going to also have a mobile version? Or when will this be available in my wiki? Or, can this also be available in this kind of workflow, or when I'm doing this sort of thing? So, and that's a lot of the work of the community tech product manager, is kind of balancing sort of the vision of the project and us being able to do it within a reasonable amount of time, so we can then go on to the next wish, with also making sure we satisfy many of the folks who really care about the wish and brought it to the forefront in the first place, and work with them to really find a solution that's what they had in mind as well.
Yeah. That brings up something interesting. Have you heard of the concept of yak shaving?
No, what's that?
Oh, okay. All right. It's more that's a weird question than a question. I should look it up. I believe it comes, I should look it up. I think it comes from an episode of South Park. Let me look it up very briefly. The idea is where is it? Sorry. It comes from the Ren and Stimpy show. I'm sorry. From the 90s.
Yeah.
The idea is it's taken on a meaning in computer science or in software development. The idea is, in order to get thing A done, you need to get thing B done first. And in order to do that, you need to get thing C done, and so forth. So you end up doing something that seems completely unrelated to the task in order to get that actual thing done. So it came from the idea that the person's shaving a yak in order so that they can, I can't even remember what it was, in order to do something completely unrelated. Yeah, so that's a long way to get to my question, which is, have you found that to be an issue? Like, we really need to rewrite the parser, the MediaWiki parser, or whatever it is, in order to get these 5 other things done, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, sometimes we have to unfortunately decline wishes, which we really don't want to do. But sometimes when the wishes are first proposed, we think maybe that's possible. We'll look into it later. And then when we do more of the deep dive, we're like, oh, this would be a huge infrastructural change. This is no small wish. And if we were to do this, this could be like a 2-year project. And those are the ones that we have to decline. But what I always try to do when we decline wishes was give as thorough of an explanation as we can. So instead of just saying oh, we don't need to give all the technical details, I wanted to give the technical details, give people all the information so they can see how we reached the conclusions that we reached. And so people see that we try to the best of our abilities to at least address the wishes if we can't necessarily fulfill all of them, and share what we learned in the process of looking into them.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So you were on the community tech team, and then you're on the campaigns team. When did you make the switch?
Recently. I don't quite remember when I made the switch, because there was this sort of transitional period when I was sort of on both teams. But I think I officially have just been on campaigns since April or May. I don't know. It's recently.
Oh, that's very recent.
Yeah, it's very recent. Yeah. And so what campaigns is there are so many different kinds of Wikimedia campaigns. Some of them are edit-a-thons that might be one-day events. Some of them are reoccurring things, say like Women in Red, where there's a new list of, bios to work on every month. Some of them are annual events, or they're photo contests. There's so many different kinds of Wikimedia campaigns, but a lot of them are generally around generating content during a specific period of time. So what this new team wants to do is build and improve tools for campaign organizers and participants, so they can be better supported, have better experiences, because overall we believe in campaigns as a really powerful tool for the movement, and it deserves the support of a product team.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's so new a team that there's no evidence that it exists, as far as I can tell yet.
I think we do have a page on Meta or something, but it's not but it's sort of a hybrid page of talking about what campaigns are and having, some information about our team, because yes, we're still new. We're still very much in the early stages.
Yeah. And are you the only team member?
No, there's also, so it's small. It's also Alex Stinson and Felix Nardi. So it's the 3 of us, but we're hiring. We're in the process of starting to hire folks. And I'm hoping that by, especially next month, we can start, taking more, basically bigger steps into doing all the things that we hope to do. But since we're a new team, there's going to be a lot of learning, a lot of onboarding initially, a lot of ramping up.
Yeah. So you're trying to hire developers, or okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if anybody's listening. And wants to join the Wikimedia Foundation. What kind of work is needed?
So we haven't really launched, say, pages yet. We say, this is what we're working on.
Right.
So I would prefer once we launch it to go into the
All
details,
right.
just because,
very good. Keep it
but it's not like
best.
any big secret. It's just that since I'll be sharing some stuff soon, I'd rather it be approached in a way that kind of like has everything spelled out, but also generally some of the stuff that we're thinking about as problem areas to potentially look into is, for example, right now, it can be really hard to even find out about a lot of Wikimedia events around campaigns. Like sometimes I've actually even gone into Eventbrite and I search Wikipedia to learn about upcoming editathons, because there isn't really like any easy central place to find about these events. So that's one thing that we may look into, example.
Oh, that's interesting.
How to make it easier to discover events. Yeah.
Does that tie into the whole Wikimedia calendar thing of that speaking of requested features or something? I mean, I don't know if that ties in exactly, but there's been a very long running discussion. At some point I was involved in it too, trying to figure out it. Involved in that I was trying unsuccessfully to convince anyone my point of view, but I want to hear later another time then your feelings on calendars, because okay, that'd be important. I want everyone to know my thoughts. The idea is that there's no one calendar, and so the question is what software should we use to create this calendar so that everyone can contribute to it, and everything's in one place. I was trying to convince people to use MediaWiki, which is ironically it was a tough sell, and specifically using my extensions, page forms, and cargo for that purpose. I mean, I still think it makes perfect sense. I mean, page forms and semantic MediaWiki is also an option, but I'm willing to live with that. But I think it makes a lot of sense. I think I've talked about it with different people on this podcast before. There is a certain not invented here philosophy, I think, rightly or wrongly, because these are extensions that are created outside the Wikimedia Foundation and aren't really in use on Wikimedia sites, except for Wikisport, but that's a whole separate thing. That it's not really part of the conversation. It's something people would prefer, just getting some other open source tool to do calendars. So that's it. Yeah. But anyway, that's something that's, I guess it's a good thing. I'm glad I'm talking to you about it, because you're involved in that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll definitely be wanting to look into what people have advocated for in the past, what people feel strongly about, because I would love to one day live in a world in which it's very easy to just find out about campaign events that interest you, and then it's easy for you to register for the events, and just get rid of a lot of those hurdles that maybe make it more difficult for some people to participate in the movement, or find out ways to, find communities or, editor groups that really excite them.
Right. Okay. So this wouldn't just be a calendar, it would also be a registration system, sort of an all-in-one thing.
I mean, I would love that. We'll see. We're such a new team, but there's so much potential around campaigns. I mean, for experienced editors, they're great ways for them to, really do a lot of important work on Wiki. And then for new folks, it's a great way to bring them on board. A lot of these events have live training. They meet real people. People can edit around topics they care about, so they can find not only people who are Wikimedians, but also Wikimedians who care about a lot of the same stuff they do. So it's such a great way to bring people in. So if we make it easier for people to join, then we can maybe see some really exciting and meaningful impact come out of it.
Yeah, I guess maybe we should have gone over campaigns, what campaigns actually are, because I mean, there's some that are online and some that are just in-person editathons. Does all the stuff like Wiki loves monuments and so forth, that those are also
those are also campaigns. Now with COVID, almost everything has gone online. But yes,
Right.
traditionally there's some that are in person and some that are online.
Yeah, yeah. Who was handling campaign? Which team was handling campaigns before, or was there no one? It was just sort of, you know, you create a wiki page for your campaign, and it's up to you to do the rest.
Well, the programs department has already been doing work around, or programs team, I should say, has already been doing work around campaigns for a while now. So there's people at the foundation who help support campaigns, help train folks, help bring, you know, potential organizers together. There's also with grants that are given to some organizers as well. So there's already some infrastructure in place to support campaigns. So the new thing here is creating a team that will build software tools for campaign organizers.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I know there's also been attempts to use MediaWiki for, you know, Wikimania registration and just conference handling and all that kind of stuff, which it seems like it could potentially tie into if there's not, if you've run out of work,
yeah,
on regular campaigns, you can, you know, that it's at some point it's sort of a gray area between what's a campaign and what's a conference, I would think. Maybe. I mean, they both involve registration and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely some things that we may be building, you know, as a campaigns team, but that could be applicable and useful to many Wikimedia purposes. So ideally it's useful if we build things that are generic enough that it's not just like for one specific purpose. It can have benefit to a lot of different people for different reasons.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll put in, just note that page forms and cargo can be used for that. There's a big conference in Germany, the CCC, Chaos Communications Congress or something like that, that was actually using, I think, page forms and semantic wiki. I don't know if they still are for all the, you know, creating the schedule and all of that for the conference. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's that's my main set of questions. Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask actually, how are you involved in editing Wikimedia sites at all at this point, Wikipedia or anything else, or?
Yeah, I love editing Wikipedia.
Oh, really?
Sometimes I'm more active than other times. Like I will have sort of a spurt of editing and then I won't for a little while, and then I'll get, I noticed that I also get excited. By campaigns, like sometimes I might be the kind of editor who, when I see a campaign or editathon, it can help inspire me to edit. But yeah, initially, when I was younger, I never thought of myself as someone who could edit Wikipedia. I think it took years of me, frankly, editing my own wiki for me to develop the confidence. And then later on, I started doing some edits to Wikipedia. And I think, yeah, just having familiarity of years of working with like my own wiki and just like MediaWiki, and you know, my wiki didn't have visual editor for a really long time, so I was doing everything in wiki text, which I mean was kind of annoying, but it probably helped build up my confidence, at least with the wiki text. But now I am very happy whenever I can use visual editor, and there's also be on Gynopedia. But yeah, I love reading, researching, writing, so it's sort of a natural fit. I think I enjoy it.
Yeah, well, that actually gets to something interesting. You know, having to build up confidence. I guess it gets into a few different things we've talked about. I guess certainly the campaigns thing, that, you know, that people feel more confident if they're at an in-person event and there's someone, you know, looking over their shoulder and telling them, if nothing else, reassuring them that what they're doing is okay.
Yeah, and we want you. We asked you to be here to edit.
Right. Yeah, I mean, beyond that kind of thing, is there, and you mentioned visual editor, I don't know. Is there anything that can or should be done to make people make people feel more confident? Is I don't know. Is part of it that I mean, obviously, there's certain controversial topics where there's a greater than 50% chance that whatever you add will get reverted by someone. I don't know if it's greater than 50% chance.
If you're new, or
I feel like for anyone, especially
anyone.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're new and and you don't know about citations and all of that, there's even more of a chance. But yeah, I mean, is that part of it, that the people should start, if people want to start editing, they should focus on more obscure topics or less incendiary topics? It's supposed to be the news of the day.
Yeah, it's probably better to start in more obscure, less controversial topics initially. Yeah. But I also think that there's different things that make different people excited and confident. So some people will really love if there's like some in-person events where they can meet real people. Some people don't need that and don't want that, but they want to have, they want to know what tools and resources are available to them. They want to feel like a lot of the relevant information is at their fingertips. So I think it's about recognizing that there isn't any one type of editor and having sort of a robust approach that can work for a lot of different kinds of people who are at different steps in their journey as editors and have different needs.
Yeah, yeah. Have you participated in any, I guess it would be just the logistics given the last year, it might have been hard for you to participate in in-person events. Yeah, editathons.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's actually one of the reasons I was really interested in the team, was that I really enjoy editathons. And I think one of the reasons I started participating in them was I was kind of like just sort of lonely editing Gynopedia, mostly on my own. I was wondering who else edits wikis on their free time, like who else is excited by this stuff. I think the first event I probably attended was an art and feminism event. And then since then I've participated in other events. I was lucky to do some in person before the pandemic, but obviously now in the pandemic times, it's been online. But yeah, I think there's something that I just like about the community aspect of doing it together. And it's not for everyone. Some folks, they want to do stuff on their own, and I did that for a while, and I still do that sometimes. Like sometimes if I want to create a page that's just like a topic that interests me, I don't need an editathon to give me the incentive. I just get really excited, like, I can't believe there isn't an article on this. And I feel this like huge drive to create an article. But yeah, I think there's something I really enjoy with editathons as well. I like that it brings in sometimes different like nonprofits and groups of people who are excited about a topic, who might not even be super well versed in Wikimedia, but they're coming in for other reasons. I love the mix of people that get involved in them.
Yeah. Presumably at some point pretty early on, you must have switched from being, a student to a teacher, if that's the word, but
I've done
somebody getting help to somebody giving help.
I mean, I've only like organized one editathon. I worked with two other like nonprofits around women's health to organize a Gynopedia editathon, and it's tough being an organizer. Like, it was good that I got that experience at least one time, and I hope to do more, because it's great to just like get it from the other side. But yeah, I still participate in a lot of editathons as just like any other editor, and I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Great. We covered a lot of stuff. Yeah, I think people will like hearing about all of your different experiences in the wiki world. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I think that's it. We covered a lot. This was great. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah, thank you, Ilana, for coming on the program. It was great talking to you.
Great talking to you.